me, you want second place, go somewhere else. Like I would watch Magic play. I'd watch Michael play. And I would see them do these unbelievable things. And I'd say, can I get to that level? I don't know, but let's find out. That's why he's the best player in the game. Everything was done to try to learn how to become a better basketball player. Everything. And so when you have that point of view, then literally the world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
So because you know what you want, the world's giving you exactly the information you
100%
need to become better at it.
Because you know what you're looking for.
So many guys tell stories about your work ethic.
Yeah.
What was really your work ethic like, and for how long did you stay disciplined?
Well, I mean, every day. Since 20 years, it was an everyday process, and trying to figure out strengths and weaknesses. For example, jumping ability. Man, my vertical was a 40, it wasn't a 46 or a 40, 45. My hands are big, but they're not massive, right? So you got to figure out ways to strengthen them so your hands are strong enough to be able to palm a ball and do the things that you need to do. Quickness, I was quick, but not insanely quick. I was fast, but not ridiculously fast, right? So I had to rely on skill a lot more. I had to rely on angles a lot more. I had to study the game a lot more. And but I enjoyed it though. So like from the time I can remember when I started watching the game, I studied the game, and it just never changed. It's a good separation for me, emotionally, to be able to put myself in a place where at practice or when I'm training or during games, I switch my mind to something else. I switch my mode into something else, right? For me, it's the equivalent of Maximus, Decimus Meridius, and Gladiator picking up the dirt, smelling the dirt. It's go time, right? So that was my mental switch. It was like an actor getting ready for a film. You got to put yourself in that cage. When you're in that cage, you are that character. And then when you leave there, it's something completely different. But when I'm in that cage, bro, don't touch me. Don't talk to me. Just leave me alone.
How did you get mentally and emotionally so strong where it doesn't bother you?
Well, you got to look at the reality of the situation. Like for me, it's not, you kind of got to get over yourself. It's not about you, man. Like, okay, you feel embarrassed. You're not that important. Like, get over yourself.
That's where you go.
Get over yourself, right? Like you're worried about how people may perceive you, and like you're walking around and it's embarrassing because you shot 5 air balls. Get over yourself, right? And then after that, it's okay. Well, why did those air balls happen? Got it. High school, year before, we played 35 games, max, right? Week in between, spaced out. Plenty of time to rest. In the NBA, it's back to back to back to back to back to back to back. I didn't have the legs. So you look at the shot, every shot was online. Every shot was online, but every shot was short. Right? I got to get stronger. I got to train differently. The weight training program that I'm doing, I got to tailor it for an 82-game season so that when the playoffs come around, my legs are stronger and that ball gets there. So I look at it with rationale. Say, okay, well, the reason why I shot air balls is because my legs aren't there. I go, well, next year they'll be there. That was it.
Done.
Happy Saturday, everyone. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Chica, and happy Saturday, everybody. As you just heard, we are here this morning as your leadership doctors. And we are so super glad to have you with us this morning. Our company, Create and Educate LLC, is here to serve all of your professional development needs. When looking for solutions to the issues we were facing in our school several years ago, we really had no place to turn but to each other. We were able to draw strength from folks who were a long way away from us, like Principal Hurt, who was on fire this morning. If you missed him, make sure you go back and check him out because he was absolutely incredible. We've got to figure this money thing out, Principal Hurt. And we had Principal Kafele, who was going to be on right after us, and no doubt will also be on fire. But these gentlemen and others like Dr. Chika Akua and Principal James Presley were willing to pour into us what we needed to reset and transform our schools. The work was not easy, but fortunately, we both had incredible teams who were there with us every step along that journey. Shika was a middle school principal at the time, and I was and currently still am, actually an elementary principal at the school that I had been assigned to at that time. And just 1 year into where we are now, these school principals, and we're so excited about what we're doing, we find ourselves in state sanctioned school improvement. So we figured this whole thing has to be some way of getting ourselves better. And we didn't have a choice but to figure out what we needed to do. So when we became what was considered failing schools, the first thing we had to do was go on and dispel that, because we were only failing on paper. And what we knew at that moment was we needed something. We had to have something that was going to make a difference for the work that had to be done in our schools to change that situation. Because for us, failure was not then and never has been an option for us. So what we did is we created a framework that we use to move our schools and to motivate our staffs within this work that we were doing. Our framework is called the REALL framework, and that acronym stands for respect, excellence, accountability, literacy, and leadership. The principles of our framework were birthed from what we were going through when we were in state sanctioned school improvement. Shika's school came off the Palmetto priority list, and my school came off of the CSI list that were the bottom 5% of schools in the entire state. And that framework is what led us to moving our schools, as well as Shika's school improving 2 report card ratings and my school improving 3 report card ratings in just a single year. So I guess in a nutshell, you can say that we are practitioners with a passion for helping schools and leaders who in turn help children.
Most definitely. And thank you all for joining us for episode 112 of the Real Academy. Our one of our favorite viewers, Miss Dana Williams, has coined us, and Principal Kafele, the leadership doctors. So the leadership doctors are myself, Dr. Sheikah Houston, and Dr. Tammy Taylor. And I want to welcome everyone, because you all could be doing anything else, but you have decided to join us. So shout out to September, Principal Davis, Jasmine, Melissa, Principal Hurt, Miss Dot, Josh, Dr. Cheryl, Stacy, Alan, Miss Donna, Dr. Gallman. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you all. And Tammy has given you a good synopsis of who we are. I'm going to tell you why we do what we do, and that is because children are our most vulnerable population on earth. If we have to help people who serve our children, because we want their futures to be bright, we want them to know what's possible, and their futures is all of our futures. So who doesn't want to, impact that in a positive way? We do this through our generational studies PD and our approach for coaching leaders, using our resilience framework that you see at the top of the screen and over our shoulders. That is what helped us transform our schools that Tammy just told you about. And when you use our framework for school improvement, it touches every area of the school improvement process. Every stakeholder, leaders, teachers, students, and parents, keeping everyone aligned and laser focused to that vision that is set for the school. So this is how we were able to get those results that Tammy talked about in 1 year, because typical school transformation takes about 3 to 5 years. So when you're a part of our leadership coaching process, or when you're using our framework, we become your thought process partners in this process. So you're able to feel vulnerable throughout that process. That's one thing that the leaders that we work with feel very comfortable with. We can tell you things that we're not comfortable telling people that we're working with in our district. So they can feel completely vulnerable, and we're with them every step of the way, just like we were with one another, becoming one another's trust mates. Because it doesn't have to be lonely at the top. And that's what we realized when we were in the fray. So we do this podcast just because when we needed that help, when we were out there trying to figure this out, it was people like Principal Hurt, people like Principal Kafele, and tag teaming with one another as each other's trust mates that was able to get us through this process. So we connect with folks that are looking for help. So we would love to coach you as a leader, provide PD for your staff, definitely on school improvement process. We also have literacy-based training, MTSS training, reaching new generations training, and also our aspiring leaders coaching program. So contact us today through our website. You can fill out the form, and we will be in touch. Just let us know what you would like more information about. So that brings us to our topic today. So now you have the F rating, and we know what that feels like. So what now? So we're going to walk through the framework as we talk about this topic, and that means that we have to start with that door, and we have to start with the leader. Um, and the first thing that you had to do, the first thing that Tammy and I had to do, we had to own it. And for me, it was a tough pill to swallow, because as a student going through school, and this was my, you know, grade school and college career, I had never failed anything in my life. I had never failed a class. I had never failed a test. I hadn't gotten dumped. I was the dumper. Now I'm being silly, but seriously, I had experienced adversity because I grew up in a single parent home, but failing at something was not something that was familiar territory for me. So I had to own the F. And just like Kobe talked about in the intro video, I had to get over myself. It wasn't about me, it was bigger than me. And because I was from the area that I was leading, when I looked at my students, I saw myself. So I knew that when people saw me, they would see that F. When they looked at my school, they would see that F. When they looked at my students, they would see that F. So I had to own it, and at the same time reject it. And we're going to get more into that in just a few minutes. What about you, Tammy?
Yes, just like you, Shika, I was absolutely taken aback by the entire process and thought, what in the world? Failure is not what I do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I struggled with that entire process like you did for months. Now, during that time, though, as you can remember, there was one thing that kept me centered, and it helped me to come to terms with what was going on. And that was watching my brother fight for his life.
Mm-hmm.
When I was able to put things into perspective, and I'm watching him day after day after day fight to come back. Um, when he lost that fight, it was just like something inside me changed. And,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it was just having lost him, and losing a sibling is something that if you haven't experienced, I cannot explain it to you. But um moving from a foursome down to now just being a sibling group of three, I don't know, or maybe it was just God helping me to gain some perspective after getting through that first Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday with me watching my mom be the saddest I've ever seen her. And recognizing that I'm leading a failing school, but the school really honestly is only failing on paper,
Mm-hmm.
became less important to me. And I guess I realized, and it's like you said, like Kobe said in the intro video, I had to get over myself. Like, I got to get out of the way of this. And
Mhm.
I had to put things into perspective, just like you did. This thing was way bigger than me. And at that point, I didn't care anymore. Like, I don't care what people are saying. I didn't care what they thought. I didn't even care, honestly, what they were doing or had done. Because, a lot of things were being done
Mhm.
at that time, but I just didn't, it didn't matter anymore. Like, I had this new perspective. I knew
Mhm.
what we were, and I knew where we were, and as a school I knew what we had to do. And the one thing that I became absolutely sure of was that we were going to do it.
Exactly. And the other thing that we had to do through this process, there was no room for that Teflon mentality. And what's Teflon mentality? That's when nothing sticks to you. This isn't my rating. It's these kids, it's the teachers. This is their rating. This is what they got because the parents aren't involved. Nobody has time for the Teflon mentality. You have to diminish that. And then, like I said earlier, at the same time, you still have to, you reject it, but you own it and reject it at the same time. So what does that mean? So that means that this is what we have right now. This is our rating, but this is not who we are. And we have to show everyone who we are. And not only do we, when you're a good leader, we don't just talk about it from our standpoint because there's more people impacting the leader than just the leader. The superintendents have to own it as well. You can't have the Teflon mentality where you're disassociating yourself with the leader who has a failing rate because I want to make sure if it don't turn out in the end like it's supposed to, that I've distanced myself from this person. So I'm going to deflate them with the board. I'm gonna let the board know that I've done something about this. I put these people on an improvement plan. That's not owning it. That's Teflon. So if you want to support your leaders, superintendents have to have that ownership as well. School board members also have to support the superintendent and the leaders of those schools because all of it, you all have to own it if we're going to do something about it. We got to do something about it together. All of that money Principal Hurt talked about, it goes through several hands before it ever gets down to the school level. And if we're not taking the money and putting it in the right places, the people who can do something about it never get the opportunity. So everybody has to be a part of that ownership process and making sure that at my level, when I had to own it and reject it, I had to make sure that my students and staff did the same thing. So in my case, I saw that a lot of apathy existed. When I was talking to the students or the teachers, people are looking down when you're talking to them. You could tell that there wasn't a lot of confidence. And unlike me, a lot of my students had failed a test or a class. Many of the teachers did feel like failures because they felt like they couldn't reach the students. They weren't getting the results they wanted. So as a leader, I had to be able to read the room. And if you're not skilled in this area as a leader, please call us because you have to be able to read the room in order to figure out what you need to do. That's why we call ourselves the leadership doctors because we're good at figuring out what that prescription is. And every leader doesn't have it. It's actually a skill. So that's something that we can help you with if you don't have it because we've seen that go terribly wrong where people are doing the check marks. They following the textbook, they following the list, but you hadn't read the room because you on this step, but you needed to go back and do two more things before you ever got to that step, but you don't have the ability to read the room. So when I read the room and saw that wasn't there, I knew as the leader that I had to bring it in my messaging. I had to build everybody up, the students, the staff. I had to let everyone know through my town hall meetings what was possible. Who was I getting my feeding from? Because I had to be fed too. Principal Hurt, Principal Kafele, Dr. Tammy Taylor. We all had to be a part of that process. But as the leader, I had to read the room to figure out, hey, this is what my staff needs before we ever get to this step. I've got to build everybody up and let them know what was possible. So when a lot of people ask, what type of leader are you? Some people go to the textbook and they'll say transformative, they'll say the ISTJ or what have you. I describe myself as a gardener. I had to feed the people. That was through my town halls, was the fertilizer. I had to energize the people. I had to pick out the weeds. I had to plant new flowers. I had to tend to the soil. I had to analyze the soil to figure out what was missing and add it. I had to put up a fence blocking out the haters. And some of them was in the district. You're not going to come to my school and run my teachers down. And then stop coming with these support rounds and telling me stuff that I already know. If you don't have any solutions, don't come. Now, I don't advise you to talk as boldly as I did, but sometimes you have to let people know I have this and what you're doing right now is not helping me.
Right. And if I need your help, I'll ask. Like I don't
Exactly.
mind you offering suggestions and trying to help us to reach a solution. But what we can't have is my teachers feeling worse when you leave than
Exactly.
they felt when you got there. That's
Mhm.
not what's going to happen, because when you leave this space, you leave me here to pick up these shattered pieces. We already are beat down and downtrodden enough with
Right.
this F stamped across our chest. So when you are thinking about this whole Teflon that Sheikah mentioned before, what you have to also do is, when as you're owning it and at the same time rejecting it, because the whole time that we were a failing school, I never call my school a failing school. Never. And
Right.
when people addressed us as a failing school, I corrected them. We're not a failing school, because we
Exactly.
are not a failing school, except on that piece of paper that sent us into state sanctioned school improvement. And when you are the leader, you can't worry about the Teflon of other people. You have to be committed to the fact that, okay, this is not sticking to you. I accept where we are, I own where we are, and we have a plan for what we're going to do about it. Now, I think she is correct too in that whole process. You have to be able to discern. If you cannot discern and figure out situations and where people are and respond, you are not going to be successful in moving your school. This for me is a gift. Like I'm very, very aware, keenly aware of people, and I can perceive situations and know exactly what's needed at that time. So I know there were times when there was this spirit of heaviness that was just a cloud over the school. And those were the times that I knew I had to pull back.
Mhm.
I had to pull
Well,
back and say, no, guys, take a break, go home.
exactly, because you had that ability to read the room. And if you don't have that, you won't come with the correct messaging that's needed in the right places. So we are at our time. We're going to continue this. This will be a series for us. Principal Hurt did a great job this morning talking about that funding. Join us next on Principal Kafele's page. He will have a phenomenal guest on. Dr. Chester is joining him and going to be his guest. Join Josh and Dean on Sunday for Unlock the Middle. Roz and Coach Williams throughout the week on Tuesdays, and right back here on Saturdays. Principal Hurt is before us at 10, and Create and Educate is at 10:30. Thank you all for joining us. Remember, we create spaces that thrive. We hope that you all keep thriving on this Saturday, and we will see you guys next week.
Happy
Thank
Saturday,
you.
guys.